Have you ever learned or realized something that is so impactful, that changes your mind so dramatically, you feel compelled to share it with everyone around you? You've got the information. The proof is in the pudding. It is as clear as day to you. 2 + 2 = 4. It might as well be. And so you approach someone and lay this all out before them, and they don't care one bit. Doesn't change their thinking. I'll believe it when I see it, they say. And you say, yes, I'm showing it to you right here. Can't you see? And they shrug, and time passes, and reality bears forth your conviction. And you approach this person again later. Remember back in May when I explained this to you? Now look, see? And they say, well, I don't remember ever having that conversation. It's hard to change people's minds. Maybe it's futile, not even worth it. I had a span of about 10 years in my life where I thought I was very smart. I was reading so much and getting all of these new ideas. And at every family gathering, I would make a point of having a political discussion with my older siblings. Guess how they went? My older brothers didn't care one bit what their baby brother thought. I turned 30 and just gave up. I suppose rather than bemoaning the stubbornness of other people and their inability to change, we should first look at ourselves and look for examples when we have changed. So can you think of something, a practice, a belief that has dramatically changed in your own life recently? I remember when I was a schoolboy, teenager, the word gay was a slur on the playground and in the locker room. It was an awful thing to hear. You did not want to be called that. And back then I was smart and righteous, and I was quite sure that homosexuality was a sin. Everyone around me was too. But then I went to college, and I met people who were wiser than me, more big-hearted than me, more experienced in the world than me. And I read more, read the Bible more, listened for the Holy Spirit more. And my thinking on this changed. And it makes me realize that now in the present, how many beliefs do I hold that will need to change in the future? Maybe beliefs like this changing, maybe that's the easy stuff though, policy positions, philosophical beliefs, one's faith. Often we just change these things because everyone around us is changing them too. And this makes us appear more mannerly and normal, electable, let's say. In regards to human sexuality, I've just sort of followed the same course of belief that most Americans have. I think it's much more rare to hear about changes like this. Old Myrtle? She's smiling and giving hugs now? I thought she just scowled and sat by herself. Or old Bill the golfer? He's writing big charitable donations now? I thought he just flew first class and complained about his high property taxes. Or little Timmy? He's eating fruits and vegetables, licking his plate and asking for more? I thought he didn't like anything. I can't think of changes like this in my own life. I'm more or less the same person that I was 10 or 15 years ago. It's hard to change. And this is a problem for me. It's a problem for you. It's a problem for all of us because we all need to change. And if you don't agree with that, there is one thing you can change about yourself. The groundbreaking news this morning, the miracle in our gospel message, is that Jesus changes. God changes. This is nothing that I heard growing up. I heard that God or the wisdom of the Bible was like dried concrete. You could put your hands on it, but it would make no mark, leave nothing. Growing up, I heard that Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Hebrews 13:8. It's on the inside of your hymnals. But our story today is about God changing. God changing. It all starts through a relationship, through an encounter. One person with another person. A Syrophoenician woman, a Gentile, a woman who is not Jewish, comes to Jesus, and she comes to Jesus because she's desperate. Her child is sick, and if your child is sick, you will try anything. You will try any faith tradition, speak to anyone. Please, can you help me? Please, she says to Jesus. But Jesus' response is brutal. He compares her to a dog. It's an awful moment, and this sort of exclusivity ought to disqualify Jesus from whatever he wants to do. But to our good fortune, to this woman's, to Jesus' good fortune too, Jesus changes. The woman doesn't miss a beat from Jesus' response, and she keeps pressing him. She says, "Sir, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs." And Jesus is moved by this. It happens so quickly, but everything changes in that instant. Jesus goes from saying no to saying yes. His ministry expands, and Jesus changes. God doing this provides us with an example. It's hard for me, maybe for you, to change. But it's not hard for God to change. One of the gifts of the Old Testament is how closely it narrates God's relationship to his people, Israel. It's a fraught relationship. God is a complex God. But throughout the Old Testament, we see stories of God changing. In Exodus, while the Israelites are wandering around in the wilderness after escaping from slavery in Egypt, Moses goes up to Sinai to receive the law. But it takes too long, and the Israelites grow restless. Where is our leader? Where is our God, they say. So they ask everyone to take off their earrings and necklaces and rings, and they put it in a big pot and boil it and make a golden calf, a new God, a beautiful God right before them that they can see and touch. And they worship this God, and Moses comes down from the mountain, and he's mad. And God is even more angry because this people, this stiff-necked people who he has rescued and saved and guided with eagle's wings, can't follow him. And God is ready to give up and turn away. And Moses says, "No, God, you have delivered them out of Egypt. If you turn away from them now, people will say, 'Why did God deliver them?'" And right there in Exodus 32:14, it says, "And the Lord changed." God changes. Grace changes us. This is what the reading from Isaiah is about too. Weak hands strengthened, feeble knees firmed, blind eyes opened, deaf ears unstopped. God changes things in an instant. God changes things. And it happens so quickly. Jesus doesn't need to attend a training or a workshop this morning in order to change. He doesn't need to have a series of conversations and one meeting after the other in which he will carefully consider all the options and decide if changing is a good idea. Instead, Jesus faces this moment, this person, this relationship, and he changes in an instant. Imagine how our lives would be if we could change like this. How our grudges would just disappear. How our addictions would dissolve. How all the things that are killing our world, our country, our children in school, how all those attachments that we have would just float away, and Jesus would say to us, "You may go. Everything has changed." In the abstract, it sounds nice, but change is terrifying. There's a reason we are the way we are. I sort of caricatured Myrtle and Bill and Timmy earlier, but there's more to them. Take Myrtle, for example, the one who's always scowling and never saying hi to anyone in the community room at the retirement home. Well, Myrtle's lonely. Her children never talk to her. The only time they've reached out to her is when they kicked her out of the home that she'd been in for 40 years and put her in that awful retirement home with all the shiny, smiley, happy people. And now Myrtle's there, and nothing is where it should be. And her hip aches terribly, and she feels awful. And she needs a smile and a hug from someone else. Or Bill, the golfer, who's been good at everything his whole life. Success. He can do it all. But the one thing Bill doesn't know about is the joy of giving, because this is a practiced habit too. Bill doesn't know about the generosity of generosity. For Bill to write a big check, it would be as uncomfortable as it would be for me or maybe you to preside at one of those big boardroom meetings that he knows so well. Or little Timmy, our picky eater. Well, everybody's always talking to him about how he won't try anything new, and he's dug his feet into the ground, and he doesn't want to change because he knows who he is. And all of us know who we are too. Even if we're imperfect, we know this version of ourselves. And if we are to change, we will have to leave something of ourselves behind. So when you change, you can't do it alone. If you want to change, maybe you show up to meetings with a few people in a small room with a circle of chairs. Maybe you show up with 100 or so people in a room. And there will be name tags and coffee. You'll introduce yourself and say, I'm Myrtle. I'm Bill. I'm Timmy. I'm Jonathan. And I would like to change. That'll make you feel a little better. And you'll look around the room to get the names of the other people who are there. And you will be surprised because one of the people sitting there too will be Jesus. Because once upon a time, at least, Jesus changed too. Jesus changes too with you. Thanks be to God.